Hello, welcome to Baking Basics. Today I'm going to show you how to build and stack a cake. The first thing you're going to think about is any cakes that you're making, always use a cake drum the same size as your cake under the cakes, because this is going to be your base for a support for any dowels you need. So if you've got multiple tiers, you need multiple bases. Secondly, a cake lever is handy because you can make sure that things are level at every stage, and these are really good because you can adjust the notches. Cake dowels, you can get many different kinds. I quite like the thick ones, but you can get all sorts, wooden, plastic, so make sure you have something like that. I've got one of these which just helps me to keep my dowels still. My dad made this for me. It's a bit of decking, which is kind of made a handy handle so it's easy to cut. That's pretty much it. Oh, and an edible pen. So stage one, level off your sponges. I've got 3 layers of sponge, so I'm taking my cake leveler and I'm just going to trim the humps off each one. Take your cake drum the same size as your sponge, a little bit of buttercream onto the drum and layer up your first sponge. Make sure it's nice and central. And what I tend to do is use a board slightly bigger than the cake, just so that that gives me something to work on. So I'm not going to be putting loads of buttercream on my surface or my turntable. So I'm going to just build this up by filling it with buttercream and making sure it's nice and flat and level. And I'm going to crumb coat that. If you want to see a video of how to do that, there is a video somewhere over here. Once you've got your crumb coated cake, it's going to look a bit like this. This is a lovely crumb coated cake. Of course, you're not going to be assembling a cake like that unless you want a naked one. So I'm going to move on to the next step, the assembly. So I'm going to use a funfetti cake here. So this one was crumb coated and then I've just iced it again and covered in funfetti. So I've got my base tier, middle tier and top tier. Stage 2 is adding the dowels into your cakes. This cake is an 8-inch, this is a 6, this is a 4. I'm going to place some dowels into the bottom, so the dowels themselves need to be inside this cake within a ring slightly smaller than 6 inches, so that when this cake sits on top, you won't see any dowels. So I'll begin by just adding, I have an edible pen here, and I'm just going to mark where the dowels came out at the very top of the cake. I'm going to cut them to size, but I'm going to line them up, make sure that everything's straight and level. No cake, no matter how perfectly it's been covered, is going to be completely flat on the top. So what we need to do is mark again to the highest point. Where's my saw gone? Cut them all down. Once you've got your dowels cut down, pop them back into your cake. Just to check before I take my cake to the venue or stack it. Just make sure it's level now. So I'm going to put that board on, and I can feel that's really supported now. And I just like to get my spirit level and just double check. Yeah. If for any reason it wasn't, you can always add a tiny bit of sugar paste. Just make sure that's sitting nice and level. So I'm now going to repeat that on tier number 2, and then we'll come back and show you the next stage. That's all of the doweling done, so the next stage is to do your stacking. Now, you might be taking it to a venue and stacking it at the venue, in which case, just leave it on the boards like this and pack them into boxes now. If you're ready to stack, this is how you do it. Take a little bit of buttercream. You can use buttercream or royal icing. I'm just going to add a little bit of that just to stick the cakes together. Always choose the front of your cake. The best front of every one, so that you can line them up nicely, but all my cakes are perfect, so I don't need to even pick a good side. As you know, we've got a hidden 6-inch cake board under this cake, which now allows me to go under here and so that cake board's under there, hidden inside the cake. Centre it up, just make sure everything's kind of in line. I've only used one dowel in this one because I'm only putting a tiny little 4-inch on top of there. Touch more buttercream just to stick together. Up it comes. Make sure you're nice and central. It's all nicely stacked. You've got a little bit of gap around here now where we've stacked it together. Final stage, I've got a little bit of buttercream here. I'm going to fill the gaps. Now, if I had a royal ice cake, I'd use royal icing. If I had sugar paste, I would colour some royal icing, the right colour to match. I can still scrape around, but if you find you need to add a little bit of additional funfetti, you can add more. Let's see how this looks. I might need a little bit more on here, so I'm just going to push the funfetti up against my join there. And that's perfect, I think. I think I'll just top it off with a nice funfetti star. There you go. So that is everything you need to know about building and stacking a cake. I hope you've enjoyed watching that, and you'll be able to stack your cakes with no problem at all. Don't f*** up, and thanks for watching. I'll see you really soon. Bye.